Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy podcast. My name is Jed and we are in the Socrates and Jesus book today because, oh my God, it is the best. I have had a couple of days off because I was playing music as I am wont to do on the weekends. I tried to stream yesterday, but I was exhausted from, several days of music performance in a row. I've changed my setup on my desk a little bit, so I've been messing around with the audio settings today, but that seems to be working fine now. So let's jump in and get our asses all wise up in here. So, speaking of wisdom, last time we were exploring how to read. How to look for puzzles and how to solve puzzles specifically through the use of analogy, and how analogy uses same terms, different relationships, so same and different, two primary ideas within the set of primary ideas within the logos. There are 12. There were a few extra ones, but these are the 12 primary pairs of self terms that are used to, they're used in the hypotheses of Parmenides. Socrates' teacher, Parmenides, used these terms to outline all of the possible ways of thinking, all of the possible structures of thought that can exist in any possible universe. Giving us a 9 or a list of 8, and which fits the dialectic, of course, and a special 9th one, which transcends those 8, which would account for all possible ways of thinking that can exist. So all possible spiritual systems, cultural ways of thinking, and individual cognitive functions that human beings go through in their own development. So, same logos, he says. I'm going to use the same logos, but use different relationships. So those logos pairs include same and different, whole, part, like, unlike. There are 12 of them, and we've seen them being used in the text, specifically to define those different cognitive functions. How is belief different from understanding? Same terms, different relationships. You are a part in conflict with the whole, whereas understanding, you are a whole acting providentially to parts. And we've also recognized that these same terms are being used within the dialogue itself. So our author has these primary units of understanding in his thinking, in how he's written the book. But also Socrates is using them. His opening statement to Jesus was, hey, if we want to talk about the difference between Jesus and Socrates, we need to find someone who can represent our ways of thinking as a whole, but also has an understanding of each of the aspects or parts. They need to be able to account for how we are the same as each other, but also need to be able to describe our differences, whole, part, same, different. So these were different sections in the text. So the more you get familiar with the logos, the nature of thought, understanding, perception, and the intelligibility of reality, then the more you can go back through this book and see if you can see these terms being used throughout, in the parts and in the whole. Wink. So, same and different applied to the two things that exist, things and relationships, give us an unfolding, as we've been talking about. Same logos pairs with different relationships, same terms, different relationships, accounts for the different dimensions of reality and the different cognitive functions. We want to move from a belief-based way of thinking, which is in conflict between those pairs and causes our conflict in the world and is the cause of human suffering and problems. We want to remove belief or transcend belief to same terms. We're still looking for wholes and parts. We're still looking for same and difference, only a different relationship between those pairs. That's understanding. To be able to perceive everything as a whole and relate intelligently to the parts, caringly to the parts. Okay? Unlimited, to be free yourself, in that you don't have to believe anyone else and you can think for yourself, but to relate to people who are not unlimited but limited. And of course, you have to accept limits as a fundamental prerequisite to be in a belief-based group. You can only think this way. You can only do these things. You have to listen to what I say. You have to reject your own mind, and you can't read Harry Potter. These are the limits. So that's how our reality unfolds, and we have been talking about how we need to look for the flip, the reverse. Same relationships, different terms. In the book, we're collecting sets of terms, and we're seeing if those terms can be put into different groups or sets. And within those sets, can we arrange them hierarchically and examine the relationship between those parts, between those terms? And then can we find a connection between different sets? So, for example, the one that we use all the time, there is a set of three things: a king, his subjects, and his carriage, his royal carriage. You can arrange them hierarchically. You can see how one relates to the other. But then you can have another set or another group: a shepherd, his sheep, and his horse that he rides. Or, modern example, his motorbike, his dirt bike, or his four-wheeler, ATV. And so we look at the relationships, keep them the same, and apply them to different terms to gain insight into that set which we are less familiar with. So it's easier to see how a shepherd cares for a sheep and rides his ATV, but we might want to learn what it would be like to be a just ruler or king to people. So, same relationships applied to different terms. And of course, once we've established that, we probably want to push it further, push the implications. Can we create a third set, or can we look for clues within a text for a mysterious hidden third set? Or maybe the author has given us one or two terms. For instance, he might then say, hey, what about, what the meaning of life is for a philosopher, for a human being, is to be a just ruler of your own soul. Uh-oh. That means that even though he's just given you one term and it was hidden, he has connected being a king or ruler to your soul. So this is also part of reading, discovering the hidden questions that the author has left you to discover. So then everything that we've been used in the set of terms relating shepherds to sheep, applied analogously through analogy to understanding what it means to be a good king, we can then push it another level to how to rule your soul, which of course is an anagogic movement because it's upward moving, and that's a fancy word that means upward moving. Anagogic. That's a fun word.
Where's the joy? Where's the whimsy? Where's the childlike wonder? Dude.
It's a whimsical word, anagogic.
I'm cute. Like, it's cutie pie.
If you say so, Emma. So, that's what we've been learning and looking at, and that's going to help our continual reading, because as we continue to read, we can look for we'll collect terms as we go. Look for clues, arrange them, hierarchically order them, gather the relationships and apply it analogically to different levels, and maybe even look for hidden levels that are alluded to. That's how you solve the puzzles. That's reading. That's also understanding. Why? Because the specific terms that we are looking at apply to the soul. So they are the self-logos terms. We are developing an understanding and mastery of the logos. That's understanding. That's what we're here for. Right? We're not thinking because we are told to, oh, Jeebus does this. New drop.
A space wizard farted out the universe. All humans are inbred from a single pair of humans, not once but twice. If you're a naughty person, you get tortured eternally in a pool of lava by a vindictive genocidal deity who loves you.
Right, we're not thinking that way because we are told to. That's Professor Dave Explains. Check him out on YouTube. It's fun stuff. Right, we're learning how to think for ourselves. We are learning understanding. That's what we are here for. Now, we are also understanding itself. In this specific reflection, we are reflecting on how do we understand? What are the parts? What's the structure? What's the order? How do we see it in a book? How do we look for it in the thinking of our characters and in our author? And ultimately, how do we ourselves write or create art or write books where we can help others in a similar way through the use of analogy? But also, we're learning about how this idea of same terms, different relationships, or different relationships, same terms, same different things, relationships, account for the unfolding and the return, the unfolding of reality and the return for life as it gains sentience and the ability to participate in the logos. So the unfolding of reality and the return. Not because we are told to think that way, but because it necessarily follows, and it follows in a beautiful way, in a way we can see for ourselves. And it's that development of understanding that prepares our mind for direct insight into the nature of reality. We call that knowledge with a capital K. So when Socrates says, I am wiser than these other jabronis around me because I know what knowing is, and there's no way I'm going to mistake it for anything else, because that experience of knowing is a non-physical thing where you experience those same logos qualities all at once in an, well, potentially overwhelming, but great, profound, blissful experience of reality all at once, eternity. You recognize yourself as pure mind. You see that it's the nature of reality. In fact, all of these words that I'm using to describe knowledge, we have defined in the book as the highest superlatives. The biggest, greatest, awesomest words are used to describe that experience. So that's the significance of understanding. It prepares you to confirm your understanding in experience, not just believe some jabroni because they had a old book or a big hat, or they tried to convince you if you don't, you go to hell.
We definitely are not born with a starter kit of beliefs, buddy. Religion is shoved into children's brains forcibly through indoctrination, and if it's any kind of fundamentalism, it's essentially child abuse. Even if a kid was to come to this conclusion totally out of their own accord, that there is a divine entity that created everything, it sure as fuck wouldn't be the malicious sociopathic god that you assholes worship.
Well said, Professor Dave. So that's what we're doing. If we can come to see these things for ourselves, it wouldn't be these terrible things that represent the internal conflict of being at that cognitive stage of belief. You're in opposition with yourself, you're in opposition with reason, you're in opposition with yourself, with mind and reality, and you are different, you're other from others within yourself, within others within your team, and within the and towards others in the world. So, the cause of conflict, genocide, hatred, otherizing, all of the terrible things we see going on in the world originate from that, or are caused by that cognitive function of belief. And here we have, as Professor Dave explains, the idea of that sanctified. It's not just you who are a vindictive, genocidal piece of garbage, it's God. Now this is the cause of problems. It's not just me that thinks women suck. God thinks so. It's not just me that says I should be Queen and King of England. God says so. I have the divine right to rule. It's not just me who wants to watch Palestinian children suffer and die. God wants that, says Netanyahu and the Zionistic Jews. So, right, so the sanctification or the imagination that my personal beliefs, which are my problems and not true, are actually not only true but universally true, and usually that's an appeal to authority, God, sometimes other things like founding fathers, and then within groups or cults, the cult leader becomes the surrogate. It must be right because Trump says so. It must be right because Lincoln says so. It must be right, etc. So, last time we looked at how to do that, how to read, how to look for puzzles, and how in the looking for and solving of those puzzles, we become like the self. Because it's from the self that this experience of knowledge that you won't mistake for anything else is unfolded as a creation. So it's not even the first cause. It's an experience, but it has to have a cause. And of course, that is reflected into reality, into everyday time, and the highest functioning or the highest kind of excellence we can have in time, in the physical world, is understanding. And you can even call that excellence of understanding the dialectic. So, the art of dialectic. So we are becoming like it, not the same in that we flip it, but we are like it because likeness is same and different. So in the unfolding, same and different. Same terms, whole, part, like, unlike, limit, unlimited, different relationships. Same and different, or likeness. Our creations are like the Creator. That happens on every level. So even the greatest experience we can have, that we can understand with the greatest use of understanding, the highest superlatives, is itself a likeness. It's still a reflection of something that we call the self, you, most immediate and most intimate and most personal, but also the most transcendent and profound. The self that we are learning about here in time contains even that in a higher way. It's still even pure bliss and beauty is, or pure intelligibility of knowledge is still a likeness. And our big question is, well, hang on a second, if we're using the greatest positives to explain it, how do we use the logos to understand the self which is beyond it? That's a big puzzle. That's the puzzle of the first hypothesis of Parmenides. How do we understand the self if it's different from any experience that we have here? Oh, big stretch. So, same and different is likeness. So, we are not doing the same thing in that we're still using same and different, only different terms, same relationships. So we flip it as analogy. There's an unfolding and there's an analogical movement backwards. So as analogy is the same in that it uses same and different terms and relationships, but it's different in that it flips the order, different terms, same relationships, we are ourselves being like the source of everything, the self. So we are in reading in this way and learning how to read in this way and even learning how to write in this way, we are preparing ourselves for our own cognitive evolution and spiritual enlightenment, higher experiences, and development of your state of being through the principle of likeness.
Talking about a bunch of swamp freaks.
All right. Likeness. So that's how we're rolling, and of course we've applied that to understanding how do we address problems, because there is a sanctification or putting on a pedestalization of injustice, punishment, and vilifying people. You made a mistake because you suck and you should feel bad. You are a sinner. There is a sanctification of that with hell and the devil and sin. And of course, that's injustice, so it makes no sense that there is a fiery pit of lava that you go into because you spilt your juice when you were 5 years old. That's stupid, and again, child abuse.
A space wizard farted out the universe. All humans are inbred from a single pair of humans, not once but twice. If you're a naughty person, you get tortured eternally in a pool of lava by a vindictive genocidal deity who loved a space wizard
Space wizard. A vindictive genocidal person, deity who loves you. So, that's the question. If that's injustice and child abuse, to pass on beliefs to children, to anyone, then what's the alternative? How is there justice? How does justice work? How does cause and effects work in terms of our soul's development, and how do we actually justly address and solve problems? That's what we are looking at now. Okay? Not the sanctification of our injustice, but what is the true eternal nature of justice. Let's jump in and have some fun. Okie smoky. In a just society, the just way of life of philosophers challenges the unjust laws and prejudices of their fellow men. So here we have the analogy from the soul to the state, or from society through laws. And let's turn on my Bluetooth so I can use my trackpad. Okay, you can apply it to religion or to understanding of the divine. A unjust God is one bound by tribal beliefs, tribal gods, and a just one would reflect or personify the quest to know the self, which is to return to the source, which is the true goal of intelligible life. What does intelligible life mean? We can participate in the logos. How do we do that? It's called understanding in time. And what did we learn? Oh, the way in which, or the how that we can return to the source by being intelligible and participating in the logos is through likeness or analogy. Fun. Okay, society can use laws to defend your beliefs, just as a racist will say, God is racist, or in my house we are racists, or whatever. The universalization of their personal beliefs. Society can do that too through laws. Whereas Socrates says he didn't suffer an injustice because even though they killed a literal gift from God who was sent here to awaken people from our slumber of ignorance and belief, mediocrity and injustice, there is a long-term justice to be seen, because we now, 2,000 years later, or a bit more, can reflect on the nature of the problems we are suffering in our current world. We are suffering from lots of fascism and inequality and genocide and wealth inequality, etc., etc. It's a shit show out there, but every single one of those problems are caused by belief and a lack of understanding of beliefs a fear and hatred of understanding, which would be needed to solve problems, because that's what belief teaches. You has to vilify understanding, otherwise why would you believe someone else? And that decision to play out our fear and hatred of understanding that we get from our unjust, false beliefs from childhood was a decision to kill Socrates historically. So we can trace historically in society, the cause of all of the injustice we're suffering right now, all the way back to this specific trial. Here is Socrates saying, hey, here is the meaning of life. Master the Logos. Here's what it can do. Solve problems. And once you're free from problems, you can use understanding to develop excellence, to know reality, and to know the self, which is your literal purpose. And we killed him for saying that to defend the beliefs of the many. We were loyal to our problems and our ignorance and our sadism, and we killed sadistically the very thing that would help us. And right now we are facing the end of our species of humans as a direct result of this trial. Therefore, terrible injustice, unless it's super important for us at this precipice of humanity where we can end all life as we let beliefs play out with nuclear weapons. It's very important for us to have this experience in our timeline, for us to look back on it and say, hey, we need Socrates now. No time to fuck around anymore. We need someone who's smarter. Just like if you've got a sports team and there is a star player that has been suspended because he spoke out against a genocide or something, but it's the finals and you're going to lose the finals, the team might say, okay, let's not stuff around. Let's get the best player on our team back on the court. Let's make him captain again, because if we don't, we're going to lose. It's like that, analogously speaking, for our race. We need a Socrates. No democratic bullshit that no one's smarter than anyone else. Donald Trump, who is the most stupid and unjust, he's just as wise as a academic. So let's compromise with his beliefs. That's the Democrats. I'm talking about American politics because that's the one that we see on TV. That's the one in mainstream media. They're a large power. So we can see it play out there easily, more easily. It's on a great stage. So that sets the condition of there is no people better or worse. We're all the same. No judgments, only parts, no whole, no paradigm, no excellence, no understanding of understanding, no logos, no dialectic, nothing, just a rejection of all of those principles. So the people who are, the authorities of the Democratic Party can enrich themselves financially as the world burns and people suffer, creating the conditions for fascists. So that's the fifth stage we have. The lowest, a massive difference, that's the Democrats. Setting the stage for fascists or the right wing, belief-based politicians. Because at least they have a paradigm, at least they do something. It's terrible, but it's better than nothing to most people. Because that's not going to solve any problems. Kamala Harris isn't going to solve anything. They are the ones who are fighting progression even within their own ranks. So, setting the stage for belief-based cognitive function, that's number 4. We want to master the logos to get understanding. Because understanding is the use of the logos, but also understanding allows you to see the actual universal pattern of goodness and intelligence. That's also the logos, and it can be experienced directly as knowing. And of course, our job is to move beyond that to the self. Socrates laid this all out for us, and we killed him. And as a result, we lost the dialectic. We lost the dialectic as applied to solving problems. philosophical midwifery, and we lost the dialectic applied to dream analysis. And we didn't get Socrates' mythology. He didn't write stories because he was about to, but we killed him. And so Plato didn't have dream analysis and midwifery. And of course, that meant he wasn't able to midwife his student Aristotle. Even though he did have a dialectic applied to reality. And he wrote about that a lot, of course. Thankfully, we have the dialectic of Parmenides and the dialectic in the Symposium. And it described the training of the dialectician in the Republic. But after him, we had Aristotle, who just, his belief was, of course, all beliefs are, in opposition to that, and without midwifery and dream analysis, he couldn't overcome that block. And so we have the tradition of Aristotle. We as a human race do not have the dialectic or the use of understanding to solve problems, so we are suffering Nazism again, suffering fascism again, gave it a different name, called it capitalism again. And of course, without an understanding of the dialectic, because of Aristotle, we don't have an understanding of the paradigm that we all should be learning, and insisting that our smartest leaders or smartest people among us, we have a standard to determine what makes you smart. Your direct apprehension of that model of justice, called the Logos, or knowledge with a capital K. So, all traced back to this trial. In siding with our ignorance over understanding and killing Socrates, that historically led directly to the terrible state of the world we are facing right now. Now, seeing that as a whole and as something necessary in our development, so that we can say, hey, we need another Socrates, no fifth stage mass of difference, no judgments, everything is relative to opinions. So none of that, so we can actually judge that people are better. No pretending Trump is a scholar or Netanyahu is a saint, because everyone's the same. So that we can actually say, yeah, we need the best player on the team to lead someone like Socrates, and we can look back at what is the implications of not doing that, not demanding that the best of us lead the team. And we can also see the consequences of our beliefs if we want the person who is the smartest and most caring because they have a mastery of the Logos, and we recognize all human problems have the same root and opposition to the Logos, which is the nature of belief, then we will know that we need to look for the best person, and we will also hate him the most. There's a reason why the smartest, most intelligent and caring and understanding-based content creators on streaming platforms are also the ones that believers are obsessed with and hate. Irrationally. Obsessively irrationally. Because that's the nature of human problems. A human problem is that which blocks your development. Development is the mastery of the Logos, leading to the goal of greater participation of the Logos through understanding, knowledge, and then the self. It's all Logos. So our blocks are blocks to Logos. Therefore, people with problems, thumbs up, the most blocked, the least caring, and the least intelligent, so the most cruel and stupid people, will function in hate and anger against the best of us. Because the reason why they are cruel, sadistic, and ignorant, the reason why they're right-wingers, to say it frankly, the right-wingers, the people out shooting minorities and doing genocides and stuffing people into vans and calling themselves ICE, Gestapo. is because the reason they are stupid and cruel is because they are in opposition to intelligence and care. Intelligence and care is the Logos. We participate in it through understanding and knowledge and ultimately self. It's belief and clan-based belief identity that is in opposition to it. So that's why cruelty is the point for fascists. That's why fascists are against their own interests. They're shooting themselves in the feet. And why they attack people who are good. It's just that simple. It's either Logos or opposition to Logos. So we can recognize that and say, hey, we need a Socrates person, number one. The stupidest and most violent and cruel people will hate him the most. One thing that will unite all religions, even though they are constantly fighting amongst themselves and with humanity itself, they can unite in hatred of an understanding person, because understanding threatens all beliefs. Good, it's supposed to. Beliefs are bad. But if you think that it's your self-identity, then you are a cruel sadist, you're a savage, and that's why humans have problems. Of course, to say, oh, for countless years there have been countless unnecessary murder and innocent deaths from human beings, but not me. If I was there, I would be different. That's absurd. The very thing causing the most injustice is in you. It's in all of us. The difference between believers and people with integrity is they are lying and they're saying, well, I'm different. All other religious beliefs are crazy, but not mine, bro. So what? So we need to recognize this, that it's a human problem. Everyone has it, to the extent to which they are bound by their beliefs, and also to the extent they're unaware of their own personal beliefs from childhood, their religious beliefs, their cultural beliefs, and most in particular, their personal belief about self and reality, their pathologos. We all have that. So to the extent that you are unaware of and still a slave to your beliefs, you will be in opposition to this Socrates person. We need to acknowledge that, anticipate that, recognize that, and protect the next Socrates, as well as have an understanding that we need Socrates again. And if we don't, that's it, we're cooked, that's it, it's over. Like many other species on this planet, we go extinct. And we may even take all life on this planet with us. So, that greater perspective of the whole, including us in 2025 being able to look back to this trial, is what Socrates must be looking at to say that this unjust trial wasn't actually injustice. And here we have it in the text. The courts have to review the rationality behind law as it applies to the best of our citizens, make sure we have laws that seek out Socrates' people and reward them and protect them the most, the best of us, and also those feared to be the worst. Let's not put the absolute worst people in charge as we do now, and let's not let the worst people attack the best people as they do now. That would be a rational use of law. I was allowed an opportunity to dialogue with my accusers and present my case before 501 people in the jury. Punishment? Nope, because I didn't suffer. I was not in any anguish. I smiled my way through the doorway of death. Why? Because something was being learned, not for Socrates, not for that society. Well, the people of Athens learnt the price they paid for upholding an unjust law. At the time, no. They didn't. Leading us to where we are now. Therefore, the people of Athens is being used mythologically as the people of Israel, or the children of Abraham are used to talk about a state of mind.
I'm cute. Like, it's cutie pie.
State of mind. We are the people of Athens. It's a cognitive function. Anyone participating at the level of understanding, trying to address their own injustice and ultimately be a force of good in the world, you are a child of Athens, or Hellenic. Just as anyone bound by belief, you're a child of Abraham. Or even Zoroaster before that, the guy who had the idea that problems are caused by good versus evil. Yes, not ignorance versus understanding. So, we are learning the price, everything that we are seeing in our unjust society currently. Capitalism, starvation and exploitation by the mega rich. No one gets a home, or no one can afford basic necessities for life because the rich have to get richer for some reason. Sociopathy, and the genocides and the law and the lynchings, the unjust laws and the lynchings that have to be in place to support it, and the idea of punishment. Hey, we're not just murdering the Palestinian people to take their stuff because we are sick, wealth-driven capitalists. No, it's we're teaching them a lesson because Hamas, that's the word, or because woke, another word. No meaning. A trigger word for all believers to say they are others. We don't need a reason to hurt them. They're just different. Let's fucking kill them and feel like big, tough, strong guys. Like Abraham. So, and here he goes to give us the clue. People of Athens can learn the price for upholding an unjust law. But by the way, these cities stand as symbols for mankind, and among them Athens and Jerusalem shine with a particular brightness. So in the very next sentence he says people of Athens is a symbol, just as people or from Jerusalem is a symbol for belief. And that's the two main characters of the text, Jebus and Socrates. And of course, another clue into solving this puzzle of how this trial can be just is your reincarnation in the next sentence brought you into a most brilliant stage of history. So we need to look at stages of history. We need to appreciate reincarnation. Through this event, you arrived at the stage in history for your destiny to be known to all of mankind. So something about this trial happening at this point of history to this particular person, the wisest ever among us, accounting for reincarnation. All of these clues in the very next paragraph are needed to solve the puzzle of how this obviously unjust action is actually just. So Socrates must have a view of the whole of mankind, that accounts for reincarnation of all beings, that includes stages of history, and also sees that the cultures or the way stages of development play out within humankind, within humanity, can be represented in different cultures. And here is Socrates in Athens, the culture that represents understanding and the logos, even then being murdered by people who, even though they live in Athens, they are Jewish. Of course, Christians are Pauline Jews. We've seen that earlier. Because that represents, Jerusalem represents belief. So, only then can you see what Socrates is seeing, the justice of the whole thing. And of course, that's what we want to see. We can wonder about that state of being. Are we able to perceive our incarnations or humanity or life as a whole? Would that be the excellence of understanding? Considering lead under my table. Considering, as we've seen, we're using the self of pairs or the self logos to understand the cognitive functions. Here we have massive difference, no model, no understanding, personal statements only, because that's safe. Not really. Parent safety that they retreat to. Everything is relative, the Democrats. Above that, number 4, belief. Conflict between the self-logos pairs. Causing personal conflicts and relationships and blocks in our pathologos, and societally within mankind. The cause of wars, genocide, mass murder can be traced back to Abraham. 3, understanding. Following the logos through the dialectic. That's the highest excellence human beings can do through time. We see excellence. We like to see the football player throwing the football the most excellently. The greatest of all of them, of all of the quarterbacks, he stands above them, that level of excellence. And of course, same thing for music, but also the highest expression of excellence that we can recognize is what we're doing here, the dialectic. And of course, knowledge is a different cognitive state above that, and the self is the ultimate goal above that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, each of them can be represented with the same terms as we talked about before. That's here. And we talked about the 5, the difference being a disconnection, only the negatives, only the lesser, not the greater. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Kamala Harris say, well, I want to be rich, but no one else can be rich. Or, I don't like this bad thing, but I'm not going to say it's universally bad. Everything is just opinion. Let's compromise with fascists. Difference, disconnection. Believers are in conflict. They want to be a part of humanity and will end up destroying the whole. They have to accept limits, and they hate people who can think for themselves and are free. So conflict. And our question is, understanding is a relationship from this to there, not of conflict, but a relationship of intelligence and providence. So this highest excellence that we can achieve as human beings in time, and the literal purpose for our existence here, is to have a state of being of the whole and being able to function in a caring and intelligent, providential, is the word for that, way to the parts. Can you be a good person to yourself, to all people, in your relationships, in your creation, in your world? Can you be in a state of being of freedom while being able to help people providentially relate to people who are limited in their blocks and beliefs and problems? Meaning, we need to have a state of being ourself of the whole, of freedom, and you can fill in the rest. what would be the other qualities defined by the greater of these pairs as a state of being? Now, we're talking about that now because Socrates is saying his trial was not unjust. Looking at that trial as a part of humanity, obviously it is. But if we can recognize the role that this plays, having been murdered here as the teacher of the inventor or the creator of the first universities of the West, Plato, a fantastic intelligence, and seeing the implication that can be traced back from this traumatic event, and Plato not therefore wanting to incorporate midwifery and dream analysis to solve problems, because that was in Homer, and Homer was the official religion, even though they didn't understand it. So, fuck Homer, you killed my teacher, no midwifery, I'll find another way of solving problems, leading to where we are now. The absolute most ignorant and fascistic sadists who are going to destroy human life are the ones in power in our race. But because it happened here, where we were able to have Plato write about it, and his works even survived many burnings of libraries by the church, wanting to kill understanding, as a whole of our race, we can see that actually there is a very, very important just significance for this happening, so that we can learn from the mistakes now, as Athenians now. And if Socrates could see that, that meant he had a perspective of the whole. Which means that perspective that sees justice as a whole, by being able to see humanity as a whole, is literally the state of mind we are seeking as thinkers, as understanders, as humans and not zombies, as sages and not savages, members of the actual human race, not cavemen. We want that perspective of the whole. But because we are getting there through the use of both of them, both of these pairs of self-logos terms, same and different through analogy, which is likeness. When we have that state of being of the whole, we have developed a use and understanding of the parts. Everything we've learnt about analogy, finding the parts or the terms, arranging those parts or terms hierarchically, seeing the relationships, applying them to a different level, same relationships, different terms. We are developing a mastery of the parts or the logos. We're nailing down our jump shot and our three-pointer and our cross-up fancy dribble, so that when we do have this state of mind or perspective of the whole that we're after, so that we can have that cognitive stage of understanding, the whole relating to parts. We've also got the parts in our back pocket. We can be Socratic or Athenian ourselves. So that's interesting. We are using the development of the parts to reach the whole, but we want the whole. We want that perspective. Can we see all of humanity as a whole? Which brings us back to the absolute first teaching of philosophy that we have. Socrates had two teachers that we know about, Diotima and the lady, Diotima, a lady.
Freaks.
A lady.
Unbelievable sluts these days.
These days. Who was a master of the logos, but also Diotima taught about love and logos. But Socrates' other teacher, Parmenides, where we got the dialectic proper, and those eight hypotheses, or the eight uses of those same terms in different way to account for the 8 stages of development and cultures and states of mind, with the one self standing above all, giving us 9 hypotheses. Now, the text has posited a 10th hypothesis. Let's look at that in a minute. But Parmenides' teacher was Xenophanes, and that's the earliest recorded bit of philosophy that we have. And from Xenophanes we have this: what is the whole that sees and hears? And over the years that has been changed to what is the whole that... Actually, it is the whole that sees and hears. Now we change it to a question so we can carry it as a quest or a mantra, a way of thinking. And we can also include thinking. What is the whole that is seeing, hearing, and thinking right now? So you can carry that question. That's the earliest philosophy bit that we have. And we want to carry that because, well, the author of the book we're reading encouraged people to carry that as a question at all times. Carry it for a day and see what happens. Carry it for a week. Carry it for a month. Whatever you're doing, can you keep that question in your mind? Because we want to have that perspective of the whole. What is the whole of seeing? So when you see things, normally you distinguish parts. You distinguish the foreground or from the background. Same thing for hearing. You want to pay attention to this noise and make it different from the background noise. Same thing for thoughts. You pay attention to the parts. But can you let go of that, soften that, let that go for a while, and for a week or a month or a day even, have an awareness of the whole. Because it's our parts that contain our self-identity, our pathologos. And we want that state of the whole. So we can carry Xenophanes' question that might help us have that perspective of the whole, even while we play with the parts in the best way, this kind of reading and reflection, highest excellence, understanding. So we can have that, so we can evolve from belief into the next stage, understanding, which is to have a perspective of the whole, providentially relate to the parts, to be free, providentially relate to people who have limits, etc., for all of these greater in relation to the lesser. And only that can account for Socrates saying his trial as a part, while being unjust. We can recognize Socrates saying actually it was just when you think about the whole, and we have the clues in the next paragraph. Because number one, when you say the people of Athens have learned, you recognize these cities stand for symbols. Athens and Jerusalem are the two big ones, belief and understanding. So us as understanders now. And that we also have to account for reincarnation. So those people who suffered, who did that to Socrates then, maybe they're alive now, maybe that's us. But also reincarnation allows for learning through time. And also you have to account for stages in history and account for Socrates arriving at the stage he did as a central figure right at the birth of universities with Plato and the Academy in Athens, and as the most significant figure in the life of Plato, who created the universities in a way that can last through history and become known by all of mankind even 2,500 years later. Okay, and also as a result we can say that, hey, if we do have philosophy and if society turns towards mind through the logos and things of the mind, there is a flowering of culture. If not, it's criminal and oppressive. If that's the case, then this philosophy can't play a role. So all the crimes and oppression we are seeing playing out right now is directly a result of turning away from the mind and this Socratic philosophy, the logos. That's it. It's not, why are there problems? Well, maybe because man is bestial or because not enough people believe in my version of Jeebus. No, it's just this. Our culture is criminal and oppressive to the extent we do not incorporate Socratic philosophy, because that's just another way of saying we're using the mind properly to know the mind and understand fucking problems. It's just that simple. And we know that because of this book. This book makes it simple. And this book could only have happened because of Socrates. And we don't have to believe it, we are living it. So all of those things together, we can say that so long as we pay attention and have that perspective of the whole as much as we can see a justice happening. And by the way, Socrates had a divine guide, and all of any way in which anyone has ever been talked to by the divine or influenced by the divine happened to Socrates. That would mean that maybe we can be open to all of that guidance and help and aid and providence ourselves. And not secret anymore. We can't allow for fascist beliefs and child abuse through religion and human abuse through institutions that have a negative idea of justice, hurting people. We can't allow that to exist anymore. We have to be open about the fact that all problems are just caused by an opposition to the logos caused by belief. We can add to it by saying, here are the particular religious beliefs that are common. Here are the particular social beliefs and laws, capitalism, punitive punishment that are a cause. And we can even go all the way back and say, and by the way, we can trace this all the way back to us killing Socrates. So we can expand it, but we can also say it simply, problems are caused by belief, which is in opposition to logos. That's it. Problems are solved by the development of mastery of the logos. That's called the art of dialectic. That way of being we call philodianoia, love of understanding. That's it. Can fit on a bumper sticker. You could, if you've got a pickup truck, you can paint it on the side, and you can have it written on a big flag as well. And you can even sell embroidered cushions on Etsy saying that. And no secret doctrines, only shared to a few. So, that's why I'm so popular on Twitch, because it's for everyone. It's no need for a esoteric tradition. Esoteric means just special for a small group. The haters don't like that, and we clap back with facts and say, hang on a second, prove it. Show us how punishment teaches anything other than don't get caught. And how do you best not get caught? Be the sadist in charge, punishing everyone else. Why does Trump try to escape any sort of punishment from his crimes by inflicting mass murder against everyone and anyone? Is it because punishment doesn't benefit the wrongdoer? It keeps the wrongdoer from learning, keeps him stuck in his problem, doing his misdeeds again, and only teaches him to try to avoid being caught? Yep. So, you need to pick a God that reflects those intelligible causes that supposedly God has. God can't be the most fucking stupidest thing in the world if he is a higher intelligence. Therefore,
a space wizard farted out the universe. All humans are inbred from a single pair of humans, not once but twice. If you're a naughty person, you get tortured eternally in a pool of lava by a vindictive genocidal deity who loves you.
We can't accept that height of ignorance and injustice. Instead, create an idea that is a reflection or a personification as a metaphor for the actual patterns and laws and causes of reality, including the highest ideas of perfection, truth, goodness, and beauty, which are the most profound superlatives, but also that has to have a cause that we can understand why a cause has to transcend its effects. Therefore, the one or the good or the self has to be greater even than that, which is a curious puzzle. You have to recognize that it's a different level or different use of the logos, different than how we've experienced even the greatest experience. And also we have to realize
The problem is that you can't reason someone out of a position that they didn't reason themselves into.
that you can't, even though they will see that their ideas are hollow and empty of meaning through reflection and reason, you'll still believe it. That's another issue. Even though we can understand this, we have to acknowledge we're still fucking humans. Yes, if we were just following understanding, we wouldn't have killed Socrates. We wouldn't have capitalism. We wouldn't have wealth inequality. We wouldn't have 8 people with as much wealth as half the fucking population. How many lobster dinners can they have in one day? How many houses can they own? Considering we all don't get houses, but they get all the fucking houses. If it was rational and understanding, we wouldn't be suffering these disgusting problems that are easily solvable. Easily solvable. A 4-year-old could say, maybe we all need food and a house, not just a group of sadistic, murderous elite. I don't want to call them elite. They're not elite. They just hoarded all the wealth through crime. A 4-year-old could solve that problem. So we have to recognize that there is 2 aspects of it. You are a human being, meaning it's not just understanding. You need to learn the dialectic to find the root cause of your beliefs you don't know that you have, because that's what keeps us bound to ignorance.
Where's the joy? Where's the...
Wait.
The problem is that you can't reason someone out of a position that they didn't reason themselves into.
You've been a bad little girl and you're getting a vigorous spanking right now?
Exactly. You can't do that anymore, says Emma from the Majority Report. So, that's where we are. So, we have moved from punishment into the idea of reincarnation. Injustice is punishment. At every level. Don't punish yourself for making mistakes. That's being a dick to yourself. Don't be a dick to yourself. Don't punish anyone else you have influence over. You're being a dick to others. Don't set laws that are punishing people for having problems. You are being a dick to society. And don't create a God that has punishment like hell or the idea of sin. You are being a dick to everyone. You are being a dick to the divine. Don't be a dick. No punishment. Instead, we have to recognize that we are here to learn. That learning must involve reincarnation. Therefore, to be a good person, you have to yourself rise to the level of a greater perspective of wholes. Can you see the whole of humanity? Can you see the whole of your soul through multiple reincarnations to learn what you're here to learn? And can you do it in one lifetime? To quote Socrates, to escape from the chains of your problems, but also the prison of being stuck in reincarnation in the physical plane. So, from punishment to reincarnation. From injustice to justice. That can be a fridge magnet. And Socrates goes on to say, yes, we will all encounter the luminous light of being when we die. So, the tunnel to the bright light and all that people talk about sometimes. It can be overwhelming because of its profound beauty. We want to be able to get over that and participate in it anyway. Go towards the light. It's real beyond anything else, and seeing directly that this is no different from pure mind itself. So again, highest superlatives, overwhelmingly beautiful, real beyond anything else. Not different than, so it's pure mind itself. It's mind minding mind, a oneness. It radiates goodness. It's an awe-inspiring presence to all. See? You can't get better words, literally. Try it. If you can think of better words, I bet they would apply to this too. Okay, so that's where we are. So, we all have an opportunity to experience self and mind itself, beauty and reality upon death. Keep in mind the experience of death you can have while you're here. Socrates says that's what he describes in the Phaedo. The exercise of philosophy, the highest use of the dialectic is to use it while out of your body, because you don't have to take a break to piss or fill up your coffee cup and have a cookie, because you are not bound by physical distractions anymore. And by the way, that's the death experience. And by the way, the whole point of the dialectic is to reach this experience, which is a death experience. So the meaning of life is to die many times before they finally bury you. And of course, that is the root purpose behind all yogas. There is breathing yogas and stretching yogas and hot yogas and all sorts of yogas. The root thing of that is method. It's yoga to yoke or join, to join with this experience, to separate from your physical sensations, to you have the mind. It's not something mysterious, or it's you. You're still mind. You just get to have a look at it. Take a look. And of course, the dialectic can be used to go beyond that, which is the second or higher use of the dialectic within philosophy, to go through that doorway to the self. You can't imagine a greater experience, but you can understand the necessary for it having a cause that transcends. Therefore, understanding takes you beyond even knowing. So, while the knowing of the self is beyond this experience of divine radiance and goodness and light, it's beyond that experience, not beyond understanding. So that's the significance of understanding. Take it with you all the way to the self. And then maybe even use it there, if Socrates is waiting for us there, but that will be a whole different kettle of fish, which maybe we can talk about one day. I don't know. What happens once you reach the self? And also, to the level that we can participate in that divine luminosity. Earlier he said, way of being. A few pages back at 130. To the degree we're able to endure that divine luminosity, to that varying degree, there is a corresponding profound depth or shallowness of one's way of being. And also at the same time, a reduction of your pathologos, because you see that the thing that blocked you from that profound experience was nothing other than a fear that you'd lose yourself. But you realize, oh no, I wasn't losing myself. I was losing my false belief, my pathologos, image and block and mask about myself that blocked me from my true self. And also, that's what we've been talking about today. Intelligence and care. Why are the most stupid and cruel people the people most loyal to belief? I play music sometimes out in the street, and there are the stupidest people out there with signs about Jeebus. While I'm trying to share beauty and harmony and understanding, they are there with their ignorance and hate. God hates you. You have to realize you're a sinner. You'll burn in hell, with microphones. And I can't fucking believe it's so loud in 2025, but there we go. Why? Simply because belief is a rejection and fear, and therefore hatred of intelligence and care. Sadism is the nature of knowing for believers. That's why there have been so many fucking genocides. That's why we all still don't get a house. That's why we let billionaires pollute our water and food and air, even though it hurts fucking everyone. Sadism and cruelty is the point. Whereas the best people are the smartest people, the people who love understanding. I don't mean fake smart like Elon Musk or Peter Thiel or any of those sadistic fucks who pretend to be clever. Podcast bros, the Joe Rogans, I mean those. Actual intelligence. There is a connection, and by the way, you are more intelligent not because you are a man or a woman, or white or brown, or you were born on this bit of dirt or this other bit of dirt. Nope, it's completely proportional to the level to which you can participate in intelligence itself. Or, said in a better way, to the degree that you are able to endure that divine luminosity. That is intelligence. It is also goodness. So there is our intelligence and care. The more you are blocked from your own nature of mind, the more cruel and sadistic you are. Ignorant and cruel you are. Which is why punishment is fucked. Another reason why punishment is fucked. Because it teaches you you're a bad person, so you should suffer. That blocks you from your divine intelligence and goodness that is your actual fucking nature. It's a lie. Caused by ignorance to create a cycle of ignorance. That's the nature of mankind's stupidity. We have bought into a lie built around punishment to oppress people caused by ignorance to maintain ignorance. Belief. Waking up to the new race of man that is our destiny as a race, where we leave this shitty state of existence and join with the greater one, which is in the book here, a little bit further back, would mean getting out of that ignorance. The purpose or destiny of humanity itself. Come to know ourselves and the nature of reality. By addressing all clan beliefs to put an end to the cycle of clan beliefs that we identify with, so we can also put an end to our individual masks. Let's try up in the right race. Here we go. Page 131 on the next page. Man as a whole is part of the struggle to know thyself. It's a cosmic dance of meaning that ends when there's nothing left to learn, and the race of man ends in the state no longer of man, but that to which he is joined. That's the greater whole we're seeking. Right? And similarly, in a like way, if we can raise to the level of whole of mind, to the degree we can endure that divine luminosity, the smarter we get and the kinder we get. Equally so, human problems are caused by a disconnection from that. So any belief or clan identity or any punishment serves as injustice because it makes us fucking stupider and fucking crueler. So, to be a rational species recognizes, put an end to all punishment, all lies that God is doing punishment, all societal lies that law should do punishment, and all lies that you suck, you're not good enough, you're bad by nature, you've got the devil in your heart, you're a sinner, you're bad because you're a woman, you're bad because you're not white enough. Any of this horse shit functions to create ignorance and sustain ignorance. That's the ignorance of mankind. And it does that because of one simple mechanism. It blocks us from participating in our own nature, which is divine luminosity, which is intelligence and care or goodness itself. If you want good people, do this. Purify or remove the ignorance caused by belief-based cognition, clan-based identity, and punishment at any level, cosmically with hell, with the prison industrial complex in laws, or even beliefs about you being a small bean in a bad noodle. So purify what's false and then perfect ourselves in what's true. That's actually learning to not believe that you suck, but to understand your true nature. That level of understanding culminates in this experience of divine luminosity. Hopefully you won't be blocked by your fear that you will lose yourself because you've been doing that purification of what's false beliefs. And you'll be able to recognize that you are not going to die or cark it, because you can experience this lots. You're not going to physically die, but also it's your nature. So you can recognize and understand it and not be too overwhelmed by it, so you can endure that divine luminosity more, and hey, maybe even go through the doors to know the self. Again, purification of beliefs that block us from intelligence and self, and perfection of understanding, which helps us to reach this divine intelligence and beyond the self. That's it. Purification and perfection, only two things. Purification of beliefs, perfection of understanding. All we seem to be doing as we are learning as human beings is learning this point in many, many, many different ways. Last time we talked about excellence and pseudo-excellence, and today's spam. Thank you, capitalism. Block, block, block. Today we're learning about the significance of purification and perfection as it relates to being a good person and a smart person, and the implications of not doing it, being a cruel person and a stupid person. Because we're seeing that this is the nature of humanity right now. We are ruled by the cruelest, most stupidest people, which can be traced back to our rejection of Socrates in this trial, as a personification of the rejection of Logos, deciding to make laws that uphold our beliefs instead of understanding. So we're just learning this. We're learning this again and again in all of the different ways. Same thing. It's always the same thing. And I think last time we actually talked about this idea that we're saying the same point again and again. Purification of what's false from beliefs, perfection of what's true through understanding. That's also the role of the comedian, to make that one single point again and again and again and again and again, with many, many different examples, applying to many, many different fields. That's why whether they knew the reason why they were pissed off or not, everyone got pissed off, and those comedians like Bill Burr, who went over to Saudi Arabia to do comedy. The reason is they were told they can't make fun of politics and religion, the sanctification of the thing they're supposed to be purifying. In other words, they have completely corrupted their one job. If comedians are to make the one point in many, many different ways, and phrase it like a dialectic where you don't give the answer but you give the question. So it's kind of like the dialectic, because you don't give the punchline, you let the audience come to the realization themselves. Then you can't accept any censorship against speaking out against belief or speaking up for understanding. That's literally your fucking job, Bill Burr and all those comedians. That's the issue. That's the root issue. People might not be aware of that or not. And they're talking about it's hypocritical. Well, the hypocrisy is this. Your job is to make this one point again and again. And that's what learning is. All human learning is to see this again and again. Whatever you learn, you are realizing, hang on a second, to be a good chef, I have to purify myself from the belief that I can't do it and perfect my understanding of how to make a delicious pie. Same thing for any goal. Relationships. What do you have to purify to be in a relationship with a good noodle? And what do you have to perfect? Do you have to perfect your understanding of that person? We saw that earlier, didn't we? Read about that earlier. Let's find it. No, not understanding. It'll be understand. Let's try a beloved. Let's try beloved. That beloved. There is an intimate connection between, in our philosophy, between logos and love, the role of reason in love. In loving one's beloved, one learns the way to the divine. Okay, so you can, in a loving relationship, it is analogous to, and a method or yoga for connecting with that divine luminosity that makes you smart and good, but also to go beyond to the self, which is your purpose. Here we go. The way to the divine is the way to the very passionate lover must learn to cultivate and gain the beloved. So that divine luminosity that we're seeking and we get to experience when we die, to a certain degree, to the degree that you can endure it and go into it in greater depth, to the degree you'll have a greater incarnation, or even better, a higher incarnation, or transcending physical incarnation. To the degree you can participate in this life, the degree you are smarter and kinder. Equally so, you are less cruel and stupid. But that way to that divine luminosity is also the way a very passionate lover must cultivate and gain the beloved. So how do we do that? How do we fulfill our purpose and also have fun of doing it with another person who is beautiful? Not in a rash way. So all of the, what's the word? Pickup lines. Hey, baby, did you fall from heaven? Because you got a sexy ass. That's not going to be helpful. If the desire for the beloved is joined with the need to preserve and cultivate a meaningful relationship. So you are, it's not a one-off thing. You like to be around this person a lot. The courtship must be gentle, sincere, and include an understanding of the beloved. There we go. That's the big thing. Can you include are you wanting to understand the person? And of course, if you find a soul that is open, generous, and dedicated to the pursuit of understanding or philosophy, then Plato says that he should welcome the two together, body and soul. So you can still kiss the body. Cultivate the relationship through talks about excellence, which we're doing here, right? We're understanding the highest excellence a human can have is dialectic or excellence of excellence itself, the logos. Share with the person what a good person ought to be and do. Are you learning how to be a good noodle and a caring noodle and a smart noodle? And as a result, the relationship will give birth to what can be said to rival Homer and Hesiod. So not human babies with their big funny heads and their weird looking faces. Some babies are cute, of course. Not human babies, but babies of works of excellence. The rest of the quote is that will The intelligent works of reflection that can benefit humanity and last for 1,000 years, rivaling even the works of Homer and Hesiod. But that's the sort of things that you can create and share with the world. Okay? So, if we want to be a good noodle and smart noodle, good bean, great bean, then it's directly proportional to the depth to which you can experience intelligence itself, or turn around from your physical senses where you get all your images and your shapes and colors from which you derive your stupid ass beliefs. Turn away from that, ultimately separate from the body and experience reality itself, which is the mind knowing the mind, or participating in intelligence and goodness. And you get that through in the same way you've been learning to cultivate your relationship with your beloved, so too you learn to cultivate that experience of luminosity, which is the most beautiful experience. In fact, the reason why you might find that person beautiful is because they themselves reflect the qualities of divine luminosity. They are themselves a intelligent, understanding, loving, beneficial, good noodle. Because it's the development of understanding that you can cultivate a lasting understanding, maintain and cultivate a relationship. So equally so, how often can you experience divine luminosity? But also it's through understanding you can cultivate that relationship, and that you can reach a greater depth of participation. And in the same way with your beloved, can you look into your beloved's eyes and see that the beauty that you were attracted to is a reflection of excellence of some kind? Whatever level of beauty of the mind, beauty of the soul, intelligence and care, even beauty of the body, is that a level of excellence? And then you ask the question, what is excellence? Is excellence something we recognize? Therefore, must there be a pattern or structure in reality of excellence, allowing us to recognize it when we see it? Therefore, what is the cause of excellence? Therefore, step, conclusion, logos. There must be an intelligible, recognizable, understandable system or structure to reality that can have its expressions in various different ways, including the highest expressions of people out there or things out there. Excellence, therefore, excellence implies the logos. And as we've been talking about, the highest expression of excellence is the logos itself, experienced as divine luminosity, but also from that, there is a development to true excellence. Diotima notes there is some Diotima, Socrates' lady teacher of love and logos, notes that even in that penultimate experience of the perfection of beauty or truth itself, there is a need to go further and cultivate true excellence, because that kind of excellence alone will bring one to the eternal and to become a friend of the God. So while experiences you can go in and out to, again, greater levels of depth, again, based on how much you've purified your beliefs and perfected your understanding, both of the person in your relationship, but of this experience itself, we want something that is eternal, that isn't an experience. Therefore, to be a friend of God or truly eternal, there is a further development of excellence from that greatest experience of beauty to the self. So everything we've been talking about in maintaining and cultivating and getting greater depth and gaining your beloved through the understanding of your beloved applies to this divine luminosity experience. And in the seeing of excellence of your beloved, can you see a reflection of that beauty, but also can you recognize their excellence and beauty is a reflection of self? It implies a knowable structure of logos, but is also self. Self is therefore the excellence reflected of Logos is the excellence of self reflected. It's through the Logos we can recognize ourselves in that experience. Unlike a Buddhist who may have an experience that he might call emptiness or nirvana or something like that, but not recognize the excellence of that experience by not having developed Logos along the way. Why is that important? You might mistake the excellence of that experience for emptiness. But with the Logos allows you to perceive excellence. Therefore, the cultivating of understanding with your beloved and of luminosity itself, and your desire to participate in them, with it, more and more and more, to gain an understanding of the Logos so that you can recognize the excellence of the self when you encounter the self and become eternal and a friend of God. Excellence. So we talked about purification of pseudo-excellence. Excellence isn't being the most cruel MAGA people, Netanyahu people, Zionist people. No, that's not actually excellence. You might feel like you're excellent, but you're not. That's pseudo-excellence. That's what we purify. And this is the excellence we perfect. Perfection of excellence of understanding, which is the excellence of the Logos, which is the greatest excellence we can do in time, even with our beloved, especially with our beloved, especially in the afterglow of intense experiences with your beloved, such that you can apply that excellence of Logos to the highest thing, the self, so you don't miss the self. So you don't miss the fact you might be in a state of self, a complete openness and emptiness of all other qualities. You might not recognize that that's a good state. Or you might not even recognize you're in that state, in dreams or in life or any other time. But with the Logos, you can recognize this is the highest excellence. There is an intelligence. I don't experience it as qualities, but it is the quality of excellence in a way that transcends experience. It allows for the greatest participation in all experiences, because there is an inherent Logos in that open, free, clear state of self. Nothing to recognize in the state, but with understanding you can acknowledge and recognize it. Because it's through Logos you can learn about excellence and therefore recognize the highest excellence. Otherwise you might miss it. Or you will miss it. That's true excellence, says Diotima to Socrates. The inherent intelligibility and goodness of a pure, open state of self that is reflected into the greatest experience of luminosity, and then again into physical creation that we can master through understanding in time. Neat? I think it's neat. I think it's neat that it's not esoteric. It's just understanding. It's just understanding. It is understanding. But it's for everyone. You don't have to subscribe, and I don't have an average of 3 viewers on Twitch, so you can't subscribe. But you can donate to the channel, and it's very much appreciated. It would help me with the many stresses I'm facing paying my bills. And there's a link below if you want to support the channel. Allow me to keep doing this. But you don't have to pay a weekly subscription to Fox or HBO or buy a thing from Ronald McDonald franchise. It's for everyone. It's just understanding. And understanding itself is the highest excellence. The highest excellence that you can take with you to the self to recognize the greatest excellence, the self. And it's in that you can truly be eternal, because it's not an experience. It allows for the experience of eternity, but itself as a state is something you can cultivate and maintain forever. just as you've been learning with that relationship with your beloved. Not a one-off thing. It's a cultivation and maintaining through understanding. Love and logos. Love and logos. So, love and logos. Get yourself a girl who can do both. Ha 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 ha. Purification and perfection. Get yourself a girl who can do both. And of course, as we've been saying, that's the learning. What we just described was one way of talking about the two things that we learn over and over again. What we just described in developing love and logos in a relationship, but you reflecting through understanding to recognize that it's a reflection of beauty itself, which is a preparation for the experience, but recognizing that there is an excellence even beyond that of the self, again through the cultivation of understanding, to reach the true excellence of self. That's the perfection of excellence. You have to also be doing midwifery to purify your pseudo-excellence. It's the same point. We just talked about it in terms of relationships. And we talked about it in terms of yoga or spiritual experience. We talked about it in terms of reincarnation. We talked about it in terms of how you become smart and kind. Many, many different ways of saying the same thing. Isn't that interesting? That's learning. Learning is learning two things: purification and perfection. Many, 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 many different ways. Isn't that neat? Isn't it? Isn't it neat? Isn't it? Isn't it?
Hey, whoa. Who asked you? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'll go ahead then. Right, that's what we do. Oh, and it's one art, by the way, it's the logos. So, the same excellence of the logos that is called the dialectic, you can use for both. The development of understanding in conversation with your beloved about your greatest experiences. That's excellence. It's also the method of reaching excellence. You can have the same sorts of conversations, even reflecting on your dreams with the same person, to get rid of your false images of excellence that block that experience and that relationship. Same conversation. Once you get good at it, you realize, oh, there's a structure. There are steps. It's not a debate. It's not tangents. It's not throwing spaghetti at the wall or throwing insults at your opponent. It's step by step, structured. Establishing an idea you're exploring, building it from the ground up, together, through reasoned steps, to a conclusion. Ends up being the same conclusion over and over, those same two things we learn over and over again. Oh, so there's a structure to it, which means it can be developed as a skill, and it benefits. Therefore, it's not just a skill, it's an art. That's the art of the dialectic. That's the learning that we hear. So if we're learning about two things, we are only learning one thing, that is the method of learning those two things over and over again. That's the learning. That's the art of dialectic. It's learning how to think or talk, communicate, help. And because it's just one activity, you can apply it every day as you reflect on your dreams, after every intimate experience or every yoga experience or any intense experience of higher states of insight in the afterglow. You want to reflect on it, understand it, purify what was different from it. Hey, I wasn't able to go into that experience of luminosity because I thought I would lose myself. I must be carrying a false idea of self. Let's go through a reflection through the dialectic to remove my identification with that, or purify that false image of self. Or as it says here, Yeah, where is it? Okay, let's find it. It says here, to the degree that you can endure that luminosity, to that degree there's a corresponding depth of shallowness to your being, intelligence and care. And you realize what blocked yourself from that is, or from a more experience of that, or from it itself, was your fear that you would extinguish the self. So again, same kind of conversation. You're either purifying what blocked or caused your fear, or you're perfecting your understanding of that experience to go into it in a more profound way. So, one thing to learn, which means that the two things that we can possibly take with us, if there is reincarnation and there has to be for justice and learning and nurture, because it's the one thing we're learning over and over again, we can practice it all lots and lots and lots. After every dream, in every moment even. Therefore, we can nurture it into our soul. There's our learning and nurture. There are the two things that we can be here to do. So not only have we understood what kind of thing has to be the meaning of life, a learning and nurture of the soul, the only things you can take with you if there is reincarnation, you can't take your physical stuffs. Not only have we learned what it has to be of, a kind of learning and nurture, we've learned what it is. The dialectic, the excellence of the logos. And we've learned that, or we've learned how we can nurture it in, because it's the only thing we ever do. It's thinking. It's justice. If you want to be kind to yourself, if you want to be good in relationships, and if you want to make good things in the world, be they laws or mythology or theology, it's the same thing. Therefore, all times dialectic. That's it. Oh, and you can also carry that Xenophanes question with you in your experience. As you're learning and nurturing the dialectic at all times, that's the excellence of parts. That's the excellence of stages of difference. That's the excellence of all of the things on the lesser side of the greater and lesser self-pairs. So we talk about the Democrats, or the everything is the relativists, saying there is no whole. They only have the parts. They only have the lesser. They only have this, while enriching themselves financially. They only are different. There's no sameness. There's no whole paradigm. So there's never any fascism, because that would be against the paradigm. Never any lies on TV or lies by politicians. They don't say that. So they've got rid of all this. They only have the lesser. Belief, fascists, religious people, Nazis, MAGAs, right-wingers, they're in conflict. Not only are they apart, but they are hating the whole, at war at the whole. Now we've got the next step up, understanding. We want to have a state of being of the whole. That's where we have Xenophanes' question, where you can ask yourself at all times, as Pierre Grimes would say, try it for a day, try it for a week, try it for a month, see what happens. And see how it affects your identification with that false image of self that limits your participation in the divine. How does it diminish your pathologos identity? While what we are doing in the dialectic, the learning and nurturing, is on this side. The dialectic is a motion of steps, different from punishment, which sidelines any motion, different from beliefs that don't allow for any development, different from debates, which is disgusting. It's a intelligent, caring set of motion steps that the dialectic you learn and function through in time. In that divine luminosity experience, I don't know whether you can do a dialectic, but you can definitely talk about it after. It's what you use to address limits, but it's also step by steps, which have stages or limits leading to the same outcomes. Because it's truth. 1 and 1 will always equal 2. while the logos as a whole is experienced and the logos is always the same, the art of the dialectic allows you to approach differences. Different beliefs that people have that they're blocked from. Think of the hundreds of thousands of or more midwife talks and dialectic talks Pierre Grimes have had with people, and dream analysis talks, and you can have. And by the way, we saw this in the text. This approach to difference is also something you can practice and perfect in your loving relationships. Difference. Gone too far that way. Let's go back. Man, going through the word difference, there are so many instances of this word. Of course it is, because that's the logos. Logos deals with difference, deals with divisions. Whereas your state of being can be is experienced as a whole. And some people say that's the difference between philosophy and theosophy, or the feelingness of the whole compared to... Here we go. In loving one's beloved, one learns the way to the divine. And that's elaborated. The mystery of love is not loving sameness, for it is in learning the meaning of difference that a true loving is achieved. They're different from you. They're curious and they make you interested in what's going on here. They're different. They're different, but it's interesting. How are they different? There is sameness, but there is difference. I want to kiss that difference on the lips.
Call a crackhead.
Whoops. So what? So we are learning to appreciate difference in meaningful relationships. And as we're learning, meaningful relationships, love and logos, is a method or expression of the development of that single one art we're here to learn in many, many different ways, the dialectic. So the dialectic is a mastery of parts, approach to what's different, learning the meaning of difference, even learning to love difference, dealing with what's unlike the whole or unlike you in that relationship, dealing with limits that prevent you from being free or unlimited in the state of mind, or even the limits of each moment of time is like a cell in a movie. It's a series of limits through time. So again, through time and the best way we can function or act in motion. So the excellence of this is the dialectic. The excellence of this is our state of mind of the whole. Meaning we can be doing the one activity at all times of the dialectic while having that one question at all times from Socrates' teacher, Xenophanes. What is the whole of seeing, hearing, and thinking? As you see the parts and the differences, and you hear about the parts and the differences, and you hear the different things, and you think in the highest excellence, the dialectic, still to do with parts, you can also have that question, what's the whole of it? Even though I have an excellence of the parts, those are still parts distinguished from a background. What if I didn't distinguish background and foreground and experienced all sense, hearing, seeing, and thinking? Try and unify it into those three. See what happens. I always wondered if it was seeing, hearing, and seeing, hearing, touch, and thinking. Because touch is smell and taste and touch. It's kind of like a same sense. What is seeing, hearing, touching and I don't know. I'm not sure if touch fits in there, but maybe. What is seeing, hearing, and thinking right now as a whole? So that's Xenophanes' question we can carry with us as a learning and nurture of our state of being, while learning and nurturing the dialectic, which is the state of understanding that we're after, which transcends knowing, so even might be the state of self that is eternal and makes us a friend of the gods. Have the whole as a state of being relating to the parts. Now, can we see it in the text? One's way of being descends from one's model. So this is the model we want as our way of being. Which also highlights the absurdity of people saying, hey, fifth, people who are a massive difference. I'm not against religion, just so long as you don't think or act or function through it. Then you're against belief. I'm not against religious beliefs or any beliefs. Just don't act or think or function or view through it. That's what beliefs are. Your way of being results from your psyche or your beliefs or your model. We want to see if there's any description of the state of being of understanding. State of being. Here we have what we talked about earlier. Whole and part at the beginning of the text. So even in the thinking of how Socrates is structuring the conversation itself, it would be wise to judge if each interpretation gives a balanced and fair representation of the whole, of which the parts are parts. So we even see it in the author and Socrates himself. Understanding, following the right word. I think this is where it was here. The activity of the soul experienced is in time, but the states of mind, it steps out of that temporal passing phase of being and enters into the timelessness of reality. So this is why it can be said that the soul's activity is in time, that's our dialectic, baby, and its existence is timeless or eternal. We can conclude that since it refers upon itself in this activity, so even the, I'm on page 76, to remember that. 76. I think that's a meme from a song or something. So we're after the state of being that can perhaps take us all the way to self and can be eternal, etc., and the way of understanding that we are here to evolve into. The activity is in time. That's what we said with the parts and the limits and the differences. But the state of mind, it steps out of that temporal phase of existence and enters into the timelessness of reality. So this is why it can be said that the soul's activity is in time and its existence is timeless or eternal. So the state of mind of the Philodianoia, or the true sage or mystic or human free of the zombie virus, main character and not zombie or NPC, is to function with the dialectic in parts while in its activity in time. So there's the in time activity or motion, whereas the states of mind steps out of the temporal phase of being and enters into the timelessness of reality. So its activity is in time of the soul, while its existence is timeless or eternal. But also the activity of the dialectic is to revert upon itself through that activity. So it's recursive in respect of its existence, and it's self-contained. This idea of being self-constituted means all of its functions and its mode of being and its power and activity are all within itself, and so it can stand independent of anything else, so we can say it's self-constituted. This is key. This whole idea of being independent of anything else is that state of being lastingly eternal, not knowledge or the second state of logos functioning, where it's an experience you can have in greater depth, of course, we were talking about that today, but it's still you go in and out of it many times in your life, ideally. You experience it upon death, of course. But we want that which is transcendent of the other states, that's the self. So we want to develop this state of understanding here, which we can take with us as a state of self here, which requires it to be self-constituted, because you want to feel the whole, always the same, free and out of time, and as a lasting state of peace. But you also function in time, in your activity, using the parts of the dialectic. But the dialectic is always about the self, either the purification of what's false or the perfection of what's true of the self. So it's recursive. Its activity is to take you to here. Your state of being is to be here and stay here. So it's self-constituted, doesn't need anything else. You're always using the dialectic and understanding and conversation and loving relationships and everything else to be here as a state of existence, to maintain at all times the state of self. So it's self-recursive, and therefore, like it's both your being and your functioning has the same goal or focus. So, the activities in time, the states of mind is outside of temporal, timeless reality. The soul's activities in time, its existence is timeless or eternal. Since it reverts upon itself in its activity, it's recursive in respect to its existence, so it's self-constituted. This idea of being self-constituted is what we're after. This idea of being self-constituted means its functions and its way of being, mode of being, and its power and its activity are all within itself. The power is from your state of mind. The activity is about your state of mind. Your mode of being is that state of mind of eternity. And your functioning is to bring about that and facilitate that in anything else. Therefore, it's all within itself, therefore it can stand independent of anything else. Whatever you're experiencing, either in time or in that realm of being or eternity, it's independent of that. You can be self-constituted, and therefore you can be transcendent, which is important, for the self has to metaphysically, for the self to give rise to that divine light of being which is eternal, it has to be itself outside of it in a higher way. It has to stand transcendent from it in order for it to be able to give and create without losing itself. And we can learn about that from learning about how the world of being is also self-constituted as ousia, having the power and activity of giving rise to the world of becoming. And by being like being through understanding, because that's the same logos we use in understanding in time, we can become like being. So it sounds like we have a state of self or state of being that is eternal, while a functioning in time as an understander. But as it's self-constituted, it might allow us to therefore be in a transcendent state of self. Or, as we just read, as eternal and a friend of God as any man can be. Which we can do by realizing that there's only one activity we're doing at all times. It has two functionings, the purification and perfection. And anything we do is to learn that over and over again, and a comedian's job is to say that again and again and again. And a news reporter's job is to point that out again and again and again. Oh, a problem happened. I wonder if it's caused by a belief. Oh, fuck, it is. I wonder if it's solved by the development of understanding. We have to learn more in understanding. Oh, fuck, it is. And now that we're free from that problem, how do we have a better world, a utopia? Oh, understanding. There you go. News reporters, comedians, philosophers, every single person is to learn the same lesson over and over again. Purification and perfection, but we realize it's the same single activity, this dialectic. This guy here, with these categories here, so we're to learn two things again and again. One, art that we learn and nurture again and again. That's the dialectic. And while doing that, one activity in time, in motion, in all of our relationships, we are also carrying Xenophanes' question, what is the whole of seeing, hearing, and thinking right now? To have this as our state of being that steps out of time and watches it happen while functioning. So that's an excellence of a state of being while functioning as an excellence in time, making it a transcendent excellence that may be the logos of self, which is our goal of knowing the self. So, practice the dialectic with your friends over coffee and carry Xenophanes' question and let us know how you go. Leave comments in the chat, and you can join the Discord if you want, because part of this game is sharing your ups and downs, your insight, your growth, and your blocks and problems along the way, because
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
We're looking for people to share in this adventure, the purpose of life, the quest of man.
You're a wizard, Harry.
And you're all wizards, Harrys. Right?
Don't be disgusting.
Don't be disgusting.
Do a poggers.
And do a poggers by doing this. So, that's where we are in the book. Learning, we reflected that we've been learning the same thing over and over again. Art of dialectic. Two messages, perfection and purification, in many, many different ways. But now we have this question of Xenophanes while doing that single activity, which is a preparation for that divine luminosity, hopefully in this life, but even when you die. And the extent to which you've done that job of purification and perfection is the extent, according to the text, that you can dwell in it the most, which will have a corresponding level of depth or shallowness in your way of being and a consequence to your reincarnation. So, the meaning of life, not just what kind of a thing it has to be, but the particulars, the art of dialectic, and why, and how we can do the single activity even in our loving relationships. If you find another good noodle who is interested in this game, and that's the message of Diotima, that's love and logos. So, good stream back after the music, a bit of a recap, but let's continue reading next time. after a weekend of not streaming because I was out doing the music. Thanks for joining me. Once again, Twitch, YouTube, Discord, link below. Donate to the channel. That is very muchly appreciated, especially right now. And a link to the PDF is below if you want to check that out as well. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one. Self.